Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to BOMA Saskatchewan's annual election meeting. Thank you for joining us today and making time for this important event. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dawn Slosher, Chair of BOMA Saskatchewan, and I'm excited to guide us through today's program. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We affirm our commitment to reconciliation and collaboration with Indigenous nations as we move forward together. Our sponsor, we'd like to recognize our corporate sponsor, GDI Ainsworth, for their continued support throughout 2024. And today's luncheon sponsor is Restarex, and they have generously provided a gift basket as a door prize today. So make sure you put your business card in there. And thank you, Restarex, for your support. And Mike, if you want to come up and say a few words about what Restarex does.
I can just say from here on the front.
Okay, sure.
Most of you know what our company does. We do fire and water restoration, so I won't go into a big elaborate deal. I just want to thank Marissa and Dawn for giving us the opportunity to come here and speak in front of you fine folks here. Like I said, there's a door prize there, some little gifts over in the corner there with some information. So again, thank you for letting us be here. Yeah, let me call.
They're fantastic. When you have an issue at your properties and it's 2 a.m, call them up and they will. They're very helpful. All right. All right, so we're changing things up a little bit today. We're going to have the speaker before lunch, and it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Jerrod Hillman, president of Hillman AV. Jerrod is a forward-thinking leader with a passion for demystifying technology and making it accessible. Today, he'll dive into the buzz around artificial intelligence, what it means for building operations, and what it doesn't. Please join me in welcoming Jerrod.
I should have a. How do I move to the other presentation? Yeah. Fortunately,
Short table.
yeah. I'll be over here. Don't you go ahead, yeah. Chris has to save me. I'm not very good with technology, to be honest. Oh my goodness. Is that better? That's better, right?
Yeah.
So you should be able to go to full screen. Exactly. Are we happy with that? Does the next arrow work? If you hit the next arrow. Or do I just go to the next page? Okay, you can go back up. Maybe we'll have to work together, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's okay.
Okay, so my name is Jerrod Hillman, and I'll get into that in the next slide, but I just want to give you guys a bit of a backstory on where my title comes from. And can everyone hear me? I can speak fairly loud, so a funny story about why I'm kind of here right now is about, I don't know, a month ago, Chris reached out and said, hey, would you like to present at an upcoming meeting? And I replied and said, well, yeah, I'd love to do that. Do you have any topics in mind, or is there anything that I can kind of cover for you? And she said, well, we'd love to have maybe a bit of a conversation about AI and anything that Hillman Audio Video does to work with building managers and operations. And I said, oh, okay. So the funny thing about that is I started thinking, well, there's actually not much that Hillman Audio Video does with AI, and I'll get into that. But it is a very hot topic, and I thought, well, you know what I'd love to do is take away this concept of what AI is and what it isn't, and just actually talk more about that in a very practical sense. And so I put together this title, Artificial Intelligence, Natural Ignorance. And the natural ignorance, it certainly isn't meant to be offensive to people, but it's just the whole thing that this has become such a buzzword, and most of us actually don't really know much about it, or we're afraid of it, or we think we know everything about it, based on sci-fi movies. So that's where the title comes from. So then I submit the title and the description back to Carissa, and I go, yeah, we're good to go. And she goes, great, we love it. And then the next day, I get a notification on LinkedIn that says, I've been tagged as a speaker for a keynote presentation at the AGM of BOMA. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be like what you got to do, stand up and just say 7 minutes of what I do and about AI. And so I emailed her back and I said, hey, this is cool. How long do you need me for? And she says, don't worry, I'll give you at least 30 minutes. And I'm going, well, okay. So I want to give you a preface because I'm not actually, like, I'm not a professional speaker in any sense. I talk a lot. I don't get paid for it, so that's why I'm not professional at it. But so what you'll notice is that my slides are actually more like talking notes for myself, so that I can look at them and go, oh yeah, that's where I'm supposed to be. Otherwise, I will just ramble on forever. So, anyways, that's how we came to be. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide here. Oh. Okay. So who am I? So again, I'm Jerrod Hillman, and I'm not an AI expert. I actually don't know that an AI expert exists, because AI is just this vast thing, right? And it would be the equivalent of saying, oh, I'm a medical expert. And that's not really a thing either. Typically, you're a specialist in something, right? So maybe you're an expert in AI graphic design, or maybe I can't even tell you because there's just so many different verticals that this fits into. So I'm not an AI expert. I'm a huge advocate for it. I will stop my day. There are three things that if any of you ever see me out and you have 30 to 3 hours to kill, you can stop me and you can talk to me about audiovisual, which is what I do primarily. EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. So if anyone here runs on EOS, I've been running it for 6 years in our company. I've been self-implementing it. I will stop and talk to you all day about that. And AI. And so those are kind of three things that that you could just stop me about. And that's kind of why it put me here. So who is Hillman AV? So this is the company that I own. And so we provide small and medium-sized organizations with straightforward audiovisual solutions designed to enhance safety, communication, and comfort. That's if we were stuck in an elevator together for 3 floors, I would say that. But at the core of it, we do a lot of video conferencing. We do a lot of meeting rooms. We do a lot of sound masking, a ton of sound masking, and kind of acoustical treatments. And then we do paging and public address systems, mass notification systems as well for facilities. And so that's why I became a member of BOMA. I just felt like there was a large community here that we could possibly help with or work with. And so that's where it started. And pretty impressive that I only became a BOMA member, I mean, 6 months ago, and now I'm a keynote. I mean, stick with me. And the top is infinite. So why am I up here? I kind of got into that. And so, like I said, Carissa, by no intention did she mean to irritate me with her question of what I should talk about. But man, artificial intelligence and AI, if you didn't know that term 2 years ago, you sure know it now. And just show of hands, how many people think or know they use AI in systems in their buildings or at work? Oh, cool. Does anyone want to share what they maybe use that is AI driven or AI motivated?
Our ministry.
And I'm not here to like critique you and be like, well, that's not really AI, but just, yeah, go ahead.
Our ministry uses AI in our office to come forward with notes so that way our technical staff can produce better reports for executive, so that way
awesome.
The layman can better understand something more technical.
Yeah, so something like Otter AI or like Fireflies or some sort of, or using Copilot, something to record notes.
It's typically Copilot
and
ChatGPT and whatever the new ChatGPT
Yeah,
is to help
Gemini.
just kind of take it down and make it easier for the layman to understand technical terms.
Cool. Anyone else? Even in your building systems. Yeah.
We use machine learning and analytics to address security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you're with Paladin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example. And that was the other thing too, to be honest, the concept of my discussion is there's people in this room that actually have AI generating or AI systems in what they are experts in, right? Like, what's your name?
Jay.
Jay? So Jay from Paladin, some of their security systems would probably use AI to analyze information, feed it back and do that. And so I don't want to speak to that because that's not what I do, right? So I didn't want to take away from anyone there. Same with if the guys that come to mind, maybe JCI or anyone here from Johnson Controls. I know they're members as well, I think. And so same with them in building systems. Justin Tom, who I was going to pick on, he works a lot with building systems. I've had the fortune of working with him, and I would say in what you see with building systems, you probably are seeing a lot of injection of AI, or at least the words being used.
Yeah, more or less. It's not really adopted as common in the building system side.
Yeah.
Just because it's still in the initial stages, but I think it's going to go that direction.
Yeah, yeah. And so one thing I'll add to my presentation here, guys, too, is like it's not much of a lecture as much as it is open conversation. Like I said, I will stop and talk to anyone about this. And so if I say something that triggers you to ask a question, please jump in. I think it's unethical what BOMA's done to me and put me between you and food. And so I'll move things along. But anyways, okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay. So anyone get that one? Come on, Princess Bride, thank you. So like I said, AI and artificial intelligence is this buzzword, and it just keeps coming. And everything is AI, and everything is artificial intelligence, and everything is ChatGPT. And so I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and we probably could have done a drinking game where every time someone said AI, you could take a shot. And I probably would have been hospitalized in Texas, but it's just everywhere. And I'm in technology and I see it all the time, but I assume a lot of the conferences you guys go to as building owners, managers, maybe in the ministries, like it's always a session topic, always a session topic. However it integrates with whatever your profession is, there's a session topic for it. Okay, go ahead. Okay. So a couple things in the air to clear is what isn't AI? And I would say not everything automated is AI. There is a big difference between automation, right? So if and when you walk into a room and the light turns on, well, that's not AI, despite what your vendor may tell you. If the thermostat adjusts at a certain time of the day, not really AI either. That's more sensor automation, and we've been doing that for years, decades. That's a simple relay closes, sensor triggers, does this. It's if this, then that kind of logic. AI is not robots. So for those sci-fi fans out there, AI, artificial intelligence, really lives on the software side. It's a computation thing, so it can be added to any hardware and kind of deciphered that way. So AI is not robots. And then some people say, well, it's not AI because it doesn't have consciousness or human-like behavior. And there is a giant rabbit hole. We don't have the time for me to go down on. Well, I mean, technically, that's all we are, right? Is AI at the top level is the ability to analyze massive amounts of patterns and information and bring it together. That's really at the core of it. And the wormhole we could go down is, I guess, really as humans, that's all we are, just giant machines interpreting massive amounts of patterns and data inside. So what is AI? AI and natural language processing. So those are large language models that you would see like ChatGPT. Those are referred to as large language models. ChatGPT was one of the first to kind of hit the consumer market. Put your hands up if you've ever logged into ChatGPT. Oh man, well now I feel silly because I was hoping I could talk to half a room that has never used ChatGPT. Seemed like an incredibly insightful expert. But so ChatGPT is considered a large language model. Basically, OpenAI, the founder, fed it just, to quote Princess Bride, an inconceivable amount of information, and then trained it to be able to provide human-like responses. So OpenAI was always working on ChatGPT. They've been working on it for a while, but it was always very, very rigid coding that they would have to give to get responses. And so they trained it to the point where it could give human-like responses based on these massive amounts of data and patterns that it found. So those are large language models. AI and image recognition is, that's been around for a long time too. And Jay from Paladin, I'm going to pick on you now as you're going to be my moral support. You know, cameras have been using AI for a long time, right? I mean, they've been fed with information on how to recognize or detect a face, and that's how it analyzes it and says, this is a face. And we've now extended that from security cameras, from the security camera side, which is what mostly they do, to video conferencing, where if you have a camera that, say, does what's called auto framing, well, AI will detect the faces based on what they recognize as facial patterns, and it will zoom in on just the faces in the room. And if someone leaves, it would zoom in closer, and if someone comes, it would expand out. So it's constantly monitoring any adjustment or change in the pattern of that room, and it's all based on facial recognition. Speaker tracking, which is something in video conferencing, again, see, I'm trying to tie Hillman AV into this. But in speaker tracking for video conferencing, it used to be there would be a microphone and a camera in the room. And if a microphone was triggered at a certain location, a fixed camera preset would zoom to that location. Now, that's a very rigid way to do it, because if someone dropped something or a noise was triggered that opened the mic and the camera would go, that's automation. But now what they've expanded to is, now some speaker tracking models are looking at, not only is there sound coming from this way, but it also recognizes a face moving. And now it says, okay, based on facial recognition, based on the mouth moving, based on the sound coming, I can go to this this camera preset, which will use that facial recognition and say, I'm going to give this crop shot. So that's on AI image recognition. And then AI predictive analytics. That's something very common. You see it all the time. You go log into your Netflix. It says, hey, you'd probably really like these shows. That's as simple consumer level AI you can expect. As it says, based on the pattern of all this behavior, this is what we think you would like. To go back to the lights, my next level to that would be automation. Like I said, is imagine this, and thermostats like Nest are doing this, or Ecobee. The integration of AI into an automated thermostat would look like this. We've been able to set schedules for thermostats forever. I mean, we have a thermostat in our shop, I swear, it's used to light wood fireplaces. But it's so, and anyways, but it has a schedule. So I can tell it that at 8 o'clock in the morning, go to this temperature. That's automation. Now, if I were to add that schedule in, and over a period of time, and I see this on, if anyone has like alarm.com for their house and patterns like that, or systems like that, over time, AI injected into that would take that schedule and any change that you manually went and made, and it would auto adjust your schedule, right? So it's taking large pieces of data, analyzing it, and saying, based on this pattern, we actually aren't going to turn the temperature down at 7 o'clock at night, because normally you've been doing this at 9 o'clock at night. Now, I'm not saying I know what system does that, but what I'm saying is that's kind of the injection of AI into something that was traditionally just automation, if that makes sense. Same with the lights. Same with the lights there. So if we want to get, I have more slides. Don't worry, we're not stuck on this one forever. This is where I go on tangents, but a really cool concept to me, and where I think AI starts separating itself from automation, and I've had this conversation with people, is not only in those predictive analytics, but also inference. And so AI based on large amounts of data and pattern, just like humans, just like you have collected, in my case, 39 years of body language interpretation. I now have inference on what people mean because I interpret that body language. And that's what AI does. So a really cool project that is kind of being worked on in the meeting space area. For example, Microsoft is one of the leading developers of AI right now. I think they own 50% of OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, and they added a system called Copilot. And Copilot is basically ChatGPT based into your Microsoft environment. But we've always had the technology to tell you when a meeting has occurred and potentially how many people have attended it. We've always had that. And so, is anyone from HBI here? Okay, if you were at their presentation a while back, they did a really cool presentation because HBI uses Hayworth, and Hayworth does a lot of analytics on understanding. Hayworth is the furniture manufacturer, and they do a lot of analytics on understanding meeting room use, right? And they take information like how many people are in a meeting, how often is that room used, and etc. If I were to fast forward in the future, I think that a really cool AI feature based on inference would be now not only can we tell you how often that room is used, how many people were in the meeting, but how effective was that meeting. Imagine you had a system that could tell you the quality of your meetings based on how many people were engaged, what the facial gestures were in that room. If 9 out of 10 people in that meeting room had their head down looking at their phones, and you're getting these reports as a leader or manager in your organization, and you're saying 80% of our meetings are actually below 50% efficiency based on all this information and based on inference and gestures beyond just how many people sat in a chair, beyond how long a Teams meeting is run for. That's really where we can start leveraging AI for our industry anyways. So, okay, we can go ahead. Okay, so I didn't want to leave you with nothing. And so I know that most of you that are in a position where you're using building systems or you're managing a building or you're a building operator, you probably have countless amount of vendors coming to you and talking to you about AI and how this new system has AI. You should be doing this because it has artificial intelligence. And so I thought I would just share with you 10 questions that I think you could legitimately ask a vendor and really get an understanding of what it is that they're proposing to you. And so the 10 questions, so what specific problems does the AI solve, right? Everyone wants to come to you and tell you that they have this new widget that has AI, and you should, with a straight face, be able to look and say, for what? Like, what does it do, right? And have an expectation of that vendor to be able to respond back to you and say, well, this is why, and this is what it'll do. And great. Is the AI system truly intelligent or just rule-based automation? So that's a fun one because I would love, if you ever have a chance to call out one of your vendors, and I'm not saying they do this maliciously, it's just sales guys being taught something, to say, well, is that really AI or is that just rule-based automation? And you would throw them off. And then you also understand the level of comprehension that vendor may or may not have in what they're selling to you. How does the AI learn and improve? Again, this is a question for those vendors that are telling you should be using these systems. And you can say, well, great, if AI is baked in there, how does it ever evolve? How does it ever continue learning itself? How does it ever continue to improve the features that it's offering in the system? What data does the AI use and how is it collected? Okay, so I think that's going to tie into my next one, is how does the AI ensure privacy and data security? That probably is one of the largest challenges AI faces right now, is privacy. So ChatGPT, there are some privacy features you can use in there. But if you didn't know, Chat uses the conversations that you give it to continue improving its processes and its systems. And so if you are sharing personal, confidential, private, corporate, and personal information into there, it's not recommended. And that's why some organizations are shifting to Copilot. I don't sell Copilot, by the way. Don't talk to me about it after. Talk to your IT provider. Copilot is a more secure, basically secure, baked in ChatGPT AI agent in Microsoft. Google has Gemini. But I would be talking to your IT vendor about this. And if you're in a position where you can look at implementing an AI policy within your organization, I would be doing that as well. Transparently, we actually don't have one. Not many of us use ChatGPT in our office yet. If you can believe it, I'm probably the most used one. But all of you probably should be looking at, if you're in a position, an AI privacy policy. And that can be something as simple as going back to your office and saying, look, we have staff members that are going to use ChatGPT. We don't care about that, but what they do need to understand is they should not be sharing private and confidential information in there without us either knowing, without us vetting it, or they can't use ChatGPT at all, or whatever that looks like. But if you don't have that in your organization, you should or will very soon. Can you explain the AI's decision-making process? So, I mean, I don't have to hammer too much on that, because I think if you ask them that, if you ask a vendor that's trying to push you into, not push you, but, you know, offer you an AI driven system, asking it, you know, well, how does it make decisions? How long will it take until it adjusts my thermostat schedule on back? You know, how does it do it? Does it take it on every adjustment? What if someone else adjusts it? Just as examples. How is the system maintained and updated? So if you can imagine, they use AI to improve AI, which means it's exponential, which means it's constantly, I think, and if anyone has a different opinion, I honestly think right now the largest limitation to the power of AI is the computing power that we have, right? Because AI can exponentially just improve itself, but we just can't compute things fast enough. We don't have the processing power in our world yet. NVIDIA is like skyrocketing there. If anyone's invested in NVIDIA, good on you, especially 2 years ago. What are the costs and ROI? I think that's an interesting one too. I think there should be an ROI. I think most of you probably do that with systems that you purchase or work with now anyways. It's always about ROI. What is the return on investment? Not always monetary. How much time will this save me if I use it? You know, if we do, I don't need to get in here. If it does predictive maintenance analytics, well, how much time does that save me from having to have my facilities manager or my building operations guy walk around and test this or that if this system can do it and feed me a report? So, and then that would lead into how can AI integrate with existing building systems, which really is, like I was saying, it's not always about the hardware. It is about the computation on the back end. The hardware has to be high enough quality that it can feed the appropriate amount of information into that computation. But whether it can work in the existing building systems is always key. And then what support and training do you offer? At Hillman, honestly, we are very big believers of people using the technology that we implement. We hate waste. And so the worst thing for us is when people don't get trained on how to use the system. They walk into a meeting room or the room doesn't work and they don't know how, and they were never shown how, things like that. So anyways, any questions on AI and building systems? See, you guys are just hungry. All right, next slide. Okay, so then I thought practical, right? So AI and building management, if you aren't using something like Chat or something like Copilot Gemini, I wanted to give you 10 things that you could go to your office this afternoon and actually test out. I would highly, highly, highly recommend, provided you don't have a governance or a privacy policy preventing you from doing this, I would highly, actually, just quick question on that. Does anyone actually have a privacy policy or usage policy on ChatGPT? Yeah, I would think you would. Oh, good on you.
Oh, it's don't use it.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't. It's the fear thing, right? Like IT and compliance are looking at it saying, we don't know how this works. Okay, don't touch it, right? And that happens, right? Does anyone have a limited use policy? Like you're allowed to use it. There's some limitations to it though. Or are you kind of, yeah, you would have. What's yours kind of like?
So we have a license that we can use Copilot or
which is built
more
in.
sensitive writing help.
Yep.
But ChatGPT is limited to strictly personal and no ministerial information can be shared.
Yeah. So if you're not limited, I would highly recommend go and set up a ChatGPT account. There is a free account you can use. Start playing with it, and go beyond. Like the power of something like ChatGPT. I'm also not endorsing ChatGPT. I am endorsing large language models because I think, in a practical sense, there are so many things you can do with it that it's unbelievable. And honestly, if anyone wants to have a conversation later with me about all the things I do with it and all the things I've seen it do, feel free to find me. I would have coffee with you any day of the week to talk. So, so something like streamlining tenant communication, you can go and chat if you're not familiar, and those of you that are, use it to streamline tenant communication in the sense that you can go in there, write a misspelled, poor grammar, first grade paragraph on an update to tenants and say, revise this so that I sound professional and like I know what I'm doing. You could literally say that to chat, and it'll give you that back. Maintenance, scheduling, and coordination. Maintenance, scheduling, and coordination, energy optimization, those two, you can take documentation. So if you had a report, say you had a report for the last 5 years of how often you were, Mike, what's like a common system that you're always dealing with or something goes down?
Access cards.
Okay, so if you had a report telling you how often access cards went down over like the last 5 years, you could upload that, maybe blur out some sensitive information, you know, maybe usernames or etc. And you could ask, you could say something like, this is a prompt. So everything in chat works on a prompt, but you can talk to it like it's a person. It doesn't think I'm as funny as people do, but you can upload that table and you could say something like, review this information and provide me a summary of the issues I've had with this system. And it will review that document, whether it's Excel spreadsheet, whether it's a PDF, and it will tell you, these are the potential issues that you've experienced. And you can say, how can I resolve this? You can even ask it, here's a table of all the issues I've experienced with this system. How can you help me with this? And it will spit back, here are 10 things I can do to help you with this. And you can just talk to it. Lease management and documentation. Okay, so the first thing chat will ever tell you is that it is not a lawyer. And it's also not a doctor. So if you share medical information or you share legal information and you ask for, actually rather if you ask for legal or medical information, it will tell you it's neither. But it will tell you, and it can put together a draft document. It could tell, you could say, I have a new tenant starting. It's going to be a 10-year lease. Here are the exclusions. Here's what's included. Here's the rates. Please build me a lease template. And if you choose to share client information, you certainly could. But it would spit that out for you. Training and onboarding of staff. If you can find staff, you have to onboard them. We've used this to develop kind of the way things can be done. It will build a timeline for it. It can build training modules. So if you use something like we've just recently started using a system called Collage HR. We used Trainual before that. And so these are onboarding tools. Emergency preparedness plans. It can improve security protocols, enhance tenant satisfaction surveys, vendor and contractor communication, property listings and marketing. The listings and marketing is probably it has to be one of the number one industries using chat and using that, because not only will it constantly content alone, like you can go into ChatGPT this afternoon and you can say, I am so-and-so with such and such company, and I'm in charge of the marketing, and I need to develop a 30-day marketing schedule for us for Instagram. And it will help you with that. And when I say it will help you with that, not only could it provide you with the captions, the hashtags, it can provide you with the script. What I do, again, transparent, I don't do our social media posting. Someone else in our office does. What I can do is I can generate, say, based on this topic, provide me a 30-day social media content plan with the caption, the hashtags, and the description of a photo that would go with that. And it will give me that, and I can share that with the person that does do that, and done. It's just done. And I can keep that going very consistently. And so, anyways, like I said, if you're not using it, get on it. Like, I bet you could think of 10 tasks that you do every day or weekly that this could do faster and better for you, and give you. I think AI at a low level use for people like us. Some of you are better than me, but for people like us, is that it's either going to reduce effort required to do my job, or it's going to increase productivity. That's what it's going to do. One of the two. I can either work less because it gets done things faster, or I can get more done because it gets things done faster. Any questions on that? Yeah.
So if you're using a large language model, but like, can you touch on if it's not language, like if you're using values? Let's say you have a table or a database of millions of rows and lines long, but nothing but values. You ask it to say, analyze that. Do you have any experience of that that's outside of language?
100%. So ChatGPT alone can do things like text-to-text conversion. It can do code-to-text conversion, text-to-code conversion, image-to-text conversion. You could upload an image and say, tell me about this image. A lot of that, next to marketing, a lot of developers are actually using it to help them write code. I've been part of conversations with companies that have experimented against, we have programmers on staff and we have a designer on staff. And these other companies like us, they'll take the sales guy who's, efficient with ChatGPT against a programmer, and the sales guy will use ChatGPT to help him write the code. And they can do it almost faster than the programmer. And potentially more accurate. Now, it might not be programmers, if you have any, or coders. They have, sometimes the next line doesn't matter, the organization doesn't quite matter, but they have a way of doing things, right? And so chat might not produce it in the way that engineer would want it, but it still works. And so it can. And so you could drop, say, I'm going to show my age here because I don't really do much coding, but say an HTML5 file or the coding for an HTML5 website. You could drop it in there and likely ask it, hey, I'm having an issue with this image showing. Can you tell me what I'm missing? And it'll review it and it'll try to tell you what it thinks you're missing. So it can take that type of information. It can also produce that type of information. And it's advancing all the time. It can generate it can generate spreadsheets. It can generate PDFs. It can generate PowerPoints even. PowerPoints aren't quite where they should be. But for example, I worked with chat to develop my presentation. I worked a lot with it, so it does have a good sense of my tone and my cadence and kind of how my brain works, which is really interesting. And you could actually ask it to frame and outline a presentation on this, identifying each slide and the key points on the slide and the talking notes, and it'll produce it in the PowerPoint. Now, when you get the PowerPoint, the text is kind of a little bit weird. It's all over the place a little bit. But if you are sufficient and you have something like Canva is now taking where you can just literally put content on a slide using the AI tool built into Canva, and it would generate all the image and the layout and the framework. So that's something that's coming next, is what we call agentic AI. And so the problem, just because does that answer your question, kind of?
Kind of, yeah. Like, it's still language, but if it's just like a mess of numbers, you're saying, tell me what I should be concerned about in this information. I've had trouble with that.
I'd have to see what you're submitting to it just to understand, but it's certainly not perfect.
Yeah.
It identifies patterns, and so even sometimes what I'll do is I'll copy and paste a very giant document where the columns are all messed up and things, but because of the way that it identifies patterns, it can assert where the columns are and where the information goes. So it is pretty sufficient at that. That'll be a good next slide. The agentic thing and large language models. So Google was experimenting with using large language models to help their search. And what they found is it actually made it worse. So there are programs now called small language models. And the reason for that is you are likely to get more accurate and more accurate, better responses based on a small language model. And so that's coming next. But on the agentic thing, not to go too techie on this. Oh yeah, next slide. Oh, I'm getting rushed here. Not to go too techie, but agentic is where you have one GPT model that does something very, very good. You have another GPT model that does something very, very good. They work together to accomplish a deliverable between the two. Okay, so I'm getting rushed and we're all hungry. Is AI going to take my job? Next slide. Likely not. So I asked AI to generate me an image of two audiovisual technicians mounting a TV. And that's what it gave me. I can tell you that we don't mount TVs like this because, well, for a multitude of reasons. But so is it going to take your job? No. What I tell people is that AI will not take your job. Someone that learns to use AI could. So that's probably the most pressing thing I would say. So okay, go ahead, Lisa. See, and we didn't even get to use this because I was worried. Sometimes I talk too quickly, so we may need to fill the remainder of my time talking to things, be a good audience, and help brother out. Which great questions. And if you want, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I will end there so we can all get to lunch. You will find me at my table, and you can find me online. And like I said, I will talk and have coffee with anyone to talk about this. So, anyways, that's it.
All right, thank you, Jerrod.
Oh, yeah.
Insightful presentation. AI is clearly a game changer, and your expertise and valuable insights are definitely going to reshape our industry, and I encourage everyone to learn more about it because, like you said, it's not going to take our jobs, but if you don't know how it works, that might be the biggest problem. But anyway, okay, so let's start with this table for lunch, and we'll break for lunch and then do the A. Unfortunately, we don't have quorum, so I cannot call the annual election meeting to order, and we'll have to table the approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes until the next meeting. But that doesn't take apart the other things we want to talk about at the end of the meeting today. I want to recognize the past chairs that are in the room who are with us today, and I'm going to get you guys to stand. We got Brandy Clark, past chair, Lisa Pegg, and Marlene Purchase. Take a stand and thank you for blazing the trail for me to be chair. I appreciate all your contributions. Thank you. So 2024 has been an exciting year for BOMA Saskatchewan with lots of changes. We've seen Kale retire and Carissa come in, and I'd like to highlight some of our key achievements from 2024. We had a successful election day events in Regina and Saskatoon that were entertaining and insightful. Membership growth has been a top priority for us, especially in Saskatoon, and our efforts have yielded great results with 12 members since April. We've advocated for downtown revitalization and sustainability initiatives, including our ongoing discussions with local government and business groups. We're putting pressure on the cities of Regina and Saskatoon to create a grant program and to work with BOMA Best on certifying their buildings. Some things to look ahead for 2025 that we are planning. We're planning on expanding our program and events to include new speakers and workshops, continue building our presence in Saskatoon. We're going to hold a second golf tournament in Saskatoon, introduce a new membership management software capable of hosting member forums, invoicing, managing events, and supporting the executive director with member management. Yeah, so look forward to some great things in 2025. And Wendy, I know you haven't finished eating yet, but I'm going to get you to come up and introduce the new 2025 board as the chair.
Good afternoon, everybody. So the election of the Board of Directors for the Nominating Committee report is as follows. The Nominating Committee this year was comprised of Mike Walsh, Lisa Pegg, and myself as chair. Terms will expire on December 31st of this year for Adrian Lusink as an allied member, and principal members Kirk Campbell, Mike Walsh, Cecilia Lang, and myself. We received 6 expressions of interest for those 5 expiring terms, as well as 1 vacated term. From Adrian Lusink from Hudson Energy, Adam Berger from the City of Regina, Ainsley Oldershaw from Harvard Developments, Alex Hansen Colliers in Saskatoon, Kirk Campbell Cameco Corporation, and Sandy Doran Colliers in Regina. Congratulations to Adrian Lusink from Hudson Energy, who has been acclaimed to fill the allied position. Now that you're all eating, I'm going to ask Adrian, can you stand and stay standing till the end of my presentation? As well, congratulations to all the following individuals who have been acclaimed to fill the principal positions. Can each of you stand when I call your name, if you're here? Adam Berriger, City of Regina. Ainsley Oldershaw is not here. Alex Hansen, Colliers. Kirk Campbell is not here. And Sandy Doran, Colliers. The following directors will remain on the board for their second term, their second year of their 2-year term in 2025. Don Slosher, Viterra, stand, please. Adam Failer, Sask Builds and Procurement. Justin Tom, PCL Construction. According to the BOMA Saskatchewan bylaw, the board must have no fewer than 7 directors and no more than 9. So I'd like to join me in congratulating and welcoming the 2025 BOMA Saskatchewan Board of Directors. Okay, I'll turn the podium back to Dawn. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to take this time to recognize our outgoing directors, Wendy Kopek, Cecilia Lang, and Mike Walsh. Their terms will end this year, and as a token of our appreciation, we have something for you to thank you for all your years of service, and I'll give it to you after. And make sure you mark your calendars for our next luncheon on December the 5th at Mosaic Stadium in the EGT Lounge. We'll enjoy a turkey buffet and magical music interactions game show. Guests are welcome for $40 plus tax, so make sure you register as soon as you can. And Mike, you want to come up and we'll do your door prize. Got some great goodies in there. Looks like a good Friday night.
Well, I'm gonna give it a toss.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it up way up high so you can't see.
Lisa Peg.
Lisa Peg, your Friday just got better. Okay, thank you all for coming today. I know the weather wasn't great, but the snow removal crews are madly at work and the roads are a lot better than they were yesterday. I hope you have a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you at the Christmas lunch. Thank you.
If you haven't, grab a little gift over there, Corey, off the table there, so we got some little giveaways there.
Oh, yes.
I don't want to take it back.